Daf Samach Hamad Beis will begin Samach Hamad Aleph at the Mishnah towards the bottom. Zok the Mishnah, Mi Shahaya b'Mizrach v'Amar v'Noi Arav li b'Marav. If a person was to the east, and he said to his son, make an Erev to me in the west. Or alternatively, b'Marav, if he was in the west, v'Amar v'Noi Arav li b'Mizrach. And he said to his son that make an Erev to me in the eastern direction. Meaning, the person wants to be able to go in a certain direction, go further in a certain direction. So if the person is standing over here, let's say that this is the east for argument's sake, and he wants to be able to go further in towards the west. So if he's Erev is where he's standing, he can go 2,000 amas in each direction. But he wants to go further in the other direction. So he says to his son, make the Erev for me, make the Erev to me over here. By doing that, then this is his Erev. He can go from here another 2,000 amas in this direction. Now, if he didn't make this Erev, he would be here. He can only go 2,000 amas from here. But if his Erev is here, as long as this is accessible to him on the onset of Shabbos, meaning it's within 2,000 amas, so it's accessible to him on the onset of Shabbos, his Erev is from here. That means he can go 2,000 amas from each direction here. That allows him to walk further in this direction. Now, what he will gain here, he's going to lose here. If he hadn't made the Erev, it was here, he would have 2,000 amas in each direction. He'd be able to go 2,000 amas from here towards the east. If he makes his Erev here, he can only go 2,000 amas from here in each direction, which means that he'll be limited to how far he can go in this direction. Without the Erev, he could go 2,000 amas in that direction. Now he's limited to 2,000 amas from here in this direction. But his intent is he wants to go further in the other direction. So he wants the Erev over here so that he can go here plus 2,000 amas. As long as this is within his 2,000 amas, that on the onset of Shabbos, it's accessible to him. It's within 2,000 amas where he's standing. It's valid. And therefore, on Shabbos, he can walk here and walk further 2,000 amas in that direction. And again, he'll be limited to what he can walk in that direction. And alternatively, in the reverse case, it's the same thing. If he wanted to go more in that direction, if he puts the Erev over here, he tells his son to put it over here. As long as it's accessible to him only on the set of Shabbos, he can go further in that direction. So then the Mishnah continues, Im yesh himena ula beisai alpaim ama ula eruva yoser mikan mutala beisa va'osa le'eruva. But let's say, for instance, then he is, and we're assuming, we'll see in the Gemara what the scenario is, but we're assuming is, for instance, he has his house here. And again, the basic principle is that the Erev has to be accessible to him on the onset of Shabbos. So therefore the Mishnah says, Im yesh himenu lebeis alpaim ama, if between where he is and the house there's 2,000 amas, so that means his house is accessible to him. Ula eruva yaiser mekan, but if the Erev is further away, so the Erev is not accessible to him because it's more than 2,000 amas away, mutala beisa also le'eruva, so therefore his shvisa is deemed to be his house, and he's mutala beisa, and he has alpaim ama from his house, but also le'eruva, he's also, the Erev is not kind of for him because it's not accessible to him, and he's also for Eruvah. He is therefore not allowed to go 2,000 amas from this location. So in that case, then it's mutal lebeis v'as le'eruva. Le'eruva alpaim ama lebeis yaser mikan, but in his case where the Erev, it is accessible, but not the house. Now the girl asked the obvious problem over here. How can, in this scenario, how could it be that the house is not accessible? The Erev is. So we'll see what the scenario is in a moment. But if the Erev is accessible and the house is not, then the Erev is kaina and the house is not kaina. He has alpayim amma from the Erev. So therefore, we say in such a case that leiruv alpayim amma lebeisa yaser mikan also lebeisa mutu leiruv. Okay, so we will discuss in the Gemara more precisely what the scenario is. Next halacha in the Mishnah, if a person put the eruv, if it was put be'ibur shel ir, so if you have the city and you have the outskirts of the city, now you have alpayim amma from the city, and you have alpayim amma according to Reb Meir. You have alpayim amma even from the outskirts. We allow you to put a 70 and 2/3 ammas within 72 ammas of the city. Then we say that it's considered to be part of the city. So Rashi's pshat is that if the Erev was put in the outskirts of the city, you didn't accomplish anything. Because when you measure the 2,000 ammas, you measure the 2,000 ammas from the outskirts anyway. So you would be measuring from that level, let's say that it's like this, you would be measuring from this line anyway. So by putting the Erev over here, you've accomplished nothing because you're measuring from the outskirts of the city. According to the Rambam, we don't have to say we're going daf according to Reb Meir that you give the 72,000 ammas for any city. But in a case where the lines of the city were not straight and we squared it off and you put the Erev in the squared off section, again, you would have 2,000 ammas from the straight line from the squared off section. By putting the Erev here, you've accomplished nothing at all. Now, if you put the Erev outside the Tchum, you put the Erev beyond the Tchum of the city, so therefore, the city cannot be your Makom Shvisa. Your Erev is your Makom Shvisa. You put it outside the Tchum of the city. So if you put a noisen chutz l'tchuma afilo amma achas, even if it's one amma, then mashen nisker hu mafsid. What he gains in this direction, he loses in the other direction. Because now he's put the Erev over here, he's put it in the outskirts of the city. What he gains, one amma outside, so he has one amma further that you can measure the alpayim amma one amma further. But you're now losing that in the other direction, because had you not put the Erev, you would have 2,000 ammas from the city and this direction as well. So you're losing that one amma. So we'll see in the Gemara, we'll have a discussion. What about the measurements of the city itself? So that will be a discussion in the Gemara. We'll get that into greater detail. But in very general terms at this point is, if you put an Erev beyond where your Tchum would have been, where your Shvisa, where your Erev would have been otherwise, if you put it in further one direction, you gain more in one direction, but you lose in the other direction. So we'll see the Gemara now. We'll go into greater detail. Kasal Kadaita, now coming to the ratio of the Mishnah, Kasal Kadaita, we had the Havamina is Lemizrach means Lemizrach base, Lemarav base. So when the Mishnah said that you put it to the east, he asked his son to put it to the east or to put it in the west. The Havamina is that what we're dealing with is his house. So the Havamina is we're dealing with the house, and he had the Erev was put into either the Mizrach or the Marav of the house. So either one way or the other. So if that's the case, as we mentioned before, if that's the case, Bishlomo, you say, hey, mineral basal apaimula every yesmi kanish kachas. So we understand that the case of the Mishnah when it says is that if it's his alpaim amma to the house is within alpaim amma of where he is. So therefore, his house is accessible to him on the onset of Shabbos because it's within 2,000 ammas. Then his Erev is in the house. The Erev is beyond his 2,000 amas. The Erev is not accessible. So he's not kind of shvisa here, he's kind of shvisa here. This is accessible and this is not. So we understand this scenario, how you could have that the house is within his 2,000 amas, but the Erev is not. So Bishlam Emerald Base Lapai Mamu Erev Yasm Kamishkachsla, the Matal Base Matal Eruvin. He can reach the house, but not the Erev. Ella, however, hey Emerald Erev Lapai Mamu. But how can you have a case that when you say within his Erev is within 2,000 amas, but his house is beyond? Well, how can that be? If he can reach the Erev, he can certainly reach the house. If we say Mizrach means the Mizrach of the house, so therefore, if the house is, the Erev is accessible, certainly the house is. So Gemara says, therefore we have to redefine our understanding of the case. You know, when it says Lemizrach, that he's to the east or he's to the west, it doesn't mean he's to the east or the west of this house. That doesn't mean that. Misav Lemizrach base Lamara base is Lamara base aloi. Lemizrach benoi. Lamara benoi. It means no, it's not that the house is. The house could be somewhere else, meaning that he is to the east or the west of his son. His son is standing over here, and he is to the east or the west of his son. So he says to his son, and he's over here to the east of the son. He says to his son to make an Erev for him on the Marav. Now, if this is accessible to him, but the house is not, then he's kind over here, and he's not kind over here. If it's the reverse case, his son is here, he is here. If the house is within 2,000 amas of where he is, but the Erev is beyond, he's kind of here, the house, and not the Erev. It means that he's to the east or the west of his son, not to the house. You can say no, that it is the scenario we talked about before. And we are talking about the house, not the son. And when it says to the east, it means the east of his house. And what it means is that it's like in a triangle. So it depends how far away he is from either area. It's like in a triangle. So if the distance from here to here is 2,000 amas, but if the distance from here to here is less than, if this is more than 2,000 amas, if this is less than 2,000 amas, he's kind of his shvisa here. If here it's less than 2,000 amas, here it's more than 2,000 amas, he's kind of here and not here. You can be talking where he's to the east of this house, the house is here, he's to the east, or alternatively, he is to the west of his house. In either case, it could be that he's east or the west. He could be closer to his house, further from his Erev, or it could be that he's closer to the Erev and he's further away from the house. Either scenario is possible. If it's on a lachsa and it's on an angle, it's in a triangle. Sivajin in the Gemara, the next case of the Mishnah, the next halacha was that if a person puts the Erev, the Ibur Shalir, he's accomplished nothing. Because in any event, you only measure the Tchum from the Ibur Shalir. So he's accomplished nothing. If he puts it beyond the Ibur Shalir, then he gains one amma in that direction, but he loses the amma in the opposite direction. So the assumption right now in the Gemara is when we say chutz l'ibur shalir, means chutz l'tchum. So Frek the Gemara says, do you mean to say that if he put it outside the tchum, that if he puts outside the tchum, what he gains in one direction, he loses on the direction? If it's outside the tchum, the Erev is not accessible to him on the onset of Shabbos, so it's not a valid Erev. What it means is that it's not beyond the tchum. If he puts it beyond the ibura shalir, beyond the outskirts of the city, what he's gained in one direction, he loses in the other direction. Yes, he has the Eruv, and it's Chusli Bur Shalir. It's not Chusli Tchum, it's Chusli Bur Shalir. But if it's an Amma outside the outskirts of the city, so if it had been for the Eruv, you would measure it from the outskirts. It's now an Amma beyond. You gain an Amma in this direction, but you lose an Amma the other direction. Now the Gemara is going to analyze this statement. Masha Nisker hu mafsid. So what he gains in one direction, he loses in the other direction. Masha Nisker v'su loy. It's only what he gains than one direction. That's what he loses in the other direction. That's all he loses. I Tanya learned in the Brisa. If you put it within the outskirts, he's accomplished nothing. No, if you put it, it's not a chutzli bura shalir. If you put it beyond the bura, even one amma, mistakir oisa amma, he does gain that amma in that direction. But umafsid is kolir kula. But he loses the dimension of the city. Because when you count the 2,000 ammas, you have to count the city as well. Meaning as follows. Normally we say that the whole city, if a person is in a city, this whole city is considered like all his dalet ammas. So you measure the alpayim amma from beyond the city. You don't take the measurement of the city into account. That's not taken into account. However, if he measured, his chum is not in the city, so he put the Eruv outside the Ibur Shalir. So now you're measuring alpayim amma from the Eruv. So therefore, the whole city is not considered like your dalet ammas. So when you measure 2,000 ammas in this direction, you have to measure keep measuring. Then you have to measure the city as well. The city also has to be taken into account. If he hadn't made the Eruv over here, the whole city would be considered like dalet ammas. You'd measure from out here. You wouldn't take this into account. But if you're putting your Eruv down over here, so this is your Malkum Shvisa, you're measuring alpayim amma from here, therefore, you have to measure and include the length of the city in your alpayim amma. So you're not just losing out one amma in this direction, you're losing out the measurement of the city, which if you hadn't made this Eruv, you wouldn't have to take that and make that part of your alpayim amma. That wouldn't be included in the alpayim amma. You would have the city plus alpayim amma. Now that you made your Eruv over here, the length of the city has to be included in your measurement of alpayim amma. So therefore, you're losing that much from your tchum, whatever the measurement of the city is, which previously would not have to be taken into account. Now it does. You're going to lose that whole length of the city. Mora says, like kasha calls me kasha calls me. It makes a difference. Yes, it's true that if he made his Eruv here and it's outside Ibur Shal, you measure alpayim amma. And yes, it's true that, let's say the alpayim amma ends over here. Then you would have to have taken this whole length of that whole length into the calculation of alpayim amma, and you're losing all of that. So let's say, for instance, that he puts it chutz la'ibur shel, and he's measuring over here, and his alpayim amma ends up, and let's say it's 500 ammas into the city. Then he's losing that 500 ammas. However, if the city, when he measures alpayim amma, let's say it's a small city, it's not a large city. So therefore, when he puts his Eruv down, it's a small city, and he put his Eruv over here, his alpayim amma comes out to be over here, because it's not a large, the length of the city is not long, and it ends up that it's over here. Well, then you don't have to measure this alpayim amma. Then this alpayim amma we say that we don't consider this to be a separate measurement. It's all considered muvla within the tchum. You do not have to measure the length of the city. So if the alpayim amma would be here after you measure the alpine, and let's say you took off 500 amas for the length of the city, you don't lose that. You can go 500 amas further, because we would then consider this whole city to be dalet amas. So one, the kansha calls midosa b'chatzi year, you lose out the length of the city. But kansha calls midosa b'seifa year, you don't lose out the measurement of the city. And like Ravidi says, when he's measuring his chum is alpayim amma, but calls midosa b'chatzi year, if the midah ended up in the middle of the city, then he can only go within that midpoint of the city. That's where his alpine mama ends. That's all he has. But calls midosa b'seifa year. But if it's calls midosa b'seifa year, in the other city, Nasas layer kula kedalet amas, then we consider this whole city to be dalet amas, and mashlim and that's a shar. And now he just subtracts this dalet amas, and he can continue further and subtracts the dalet amas. And if this measured 500 amas, then he has another 496 amas to go further. Umashlim is a shar. But Amar Ravidi ain't elu ela divrei nevius. But Ravidi argues, he says, well, it's Nevi'us. Mali calls it a Chatzir, Mali calls it a Sefer, it should make no difference. So the Gemara on the next Amud is going to discuss these two opinions.